Hey guys, Tosan here, and I was going to do a commentary video for one of these games, if not two of them. I haven't done one of these in a long time where I just take a high-rated game and do a commentary over it, so I figured I might as well do something more educational as opposed to just uploading these clips. So this was my last game to secure rank 1, and we're fighting Thug Cleave, which is... Normally it was a very hard matchup, but mainly it was a hard matchup for us because whenever I played with my boy Kubski, who's a really good priest, his big problem though is he has no idea how to play the Strength of Soul spec properly. And Strength of Soul against double physical damage classes is really strong, so both the priests in this matchup are playing Strength of Soul. This means that they have a lot less instant burst healing in exchange for, you know, extreme tankiness when the shields are up. So one really important part of this matchup, or against priests playing Strength of Soul in general, is if you're playing with a priest, purge shields whenever you can, whenever you're ahead, and especially when the enemy priest is CC'd, or right after he comes out of a CC and throws up a big shield. Purging the shields is really nice because with Strength of Soul, it's a 30% damage reduction on anyone with a priest shield. So that's massive, you know, especially when we're playing two physical damage classes. So that also applies to bleeds as well. Even though it's like a dot and it goes past armor, it's still physical damage, so it's reduced. So the really important thing here is in this matchup, is to cleave both the DPS, because this makes it a lot harder for the priest to deal with the damage. Because they have a lot less instant healing and burst healing, whenever you get two targets really low, it's very hard for the priest to catch back up and top people off. So normally I play the single target build, trick shot true aim, and of course this is last patch when you still had spray and pray with sidewinders, but in this particular matchup, I am playing the Cleave spec with Sidewinders, specifically because it makes, you know, the Strength of Soul spec very hard for the enemy to catch up when there's two low targets, like I said. So, normally you'll see me play Trick Shot True Aim, but in this case, I am taking Cleave for that reason. So, the important thing, like I said, is just to cleave. My Feral normally does pure single target. Normally we just pick a target and train that one target while CCing the healer, and off CCing the other guys sometimes, but, in this spec, or in this matchup, my Feral's going to be bleeding both the targets as often as he can, just to keep up max pressure while we're purging shields as well. Now normally I play against these physical matchups, I will take Scorpion Sting most of the time, but recently against priests I decided it's smarter to take Viper Sting, mainly because they don't have a poison cleanse, and they don't have a lot of hard casted spells. Usually, you know, spam casting Shadow Mends is a last resort. For the most part, they use a lot of instant healing and penances and stuff like that, and Scorpion Sting will really screw their big shields. You know, a lot of the time they come out of a CC chain and they'll just throw a huge shield on the target, and yeah, maybe my priest can purge the shield, in which case it's not a big deal, but a lot of the time my priest is also CC'd and can't always purge the shields at the right time. So I think Viper Sting is better in this matchup for sure, because as soon as the CC chain ends, you put the Viper Sting up, and for 6 seconds his shields are going to be a bit gimpy, as well as penances and stuff like that. So, yeah, for the most part, you just CC the crap out of the priest. Make sure to do perfect CC chains with Feral stunning into traps, bursting shots, maybe scatters, fears whenever you can, when your priest can get them. But, yeah, besides that, we're just cleaving the 2 DPS. Now, at the beginning, of course, you can always send in your pet to get in combat. I stick my pet on the priest, and even if my pet doesn't hit anything, just commanding your pet onto a target is going to put you in combat, which means your priest can, you know, cast anything on you constantly to keep himself in combat, and this will prevent us from getting sapped. Unfortunately, our Feral does get unlucky sapped out of stealth, so it's not the greatest opener. And then they cheap shot our priest, and of course they're going to trap him off of that. So I scatter the rogue to sort of hinder their opener a little bit, because I'm going to put a full trap on the priest, so a DR scatter isn't that important, and since we got such a bad opener with my Feral being sapped and my priest getting trapped, I think the scatter shot on one of the DPS is the right choice, just to kind of screw up their opener a little bit. So I run up and put a bursting shot on the priest. Luckily he didn't Shadow Word Death it, or Premonition, still call it death. And then I'm going to put a full trap, and now I'm just going to immediately cleave. So now that we got our CC chain rolling, we're just going to be cleaving the DPS as much as possible. I'm going to try to always hit both targets with Sidewinder mark shots if I can. And yeah, I'm not too worried about surviving, because again, my priest is also playing that Strength of Soul spec, so anytime I have a shield, I'm in good shape, very tanky. My Feral Druid puts a bash on the priest. Another thing that's very important in this matchup is to use the Feral kick whenever you can. Whenever your Feral is close enough to the priest, let him kick, because he's not always going to be close enough, and since my kick is a much further range, I always tell my feral if he's near the priest for him to kick first. So he can lock, let's say, a penance, and then I can use my kick on the shadow mend next, and then the priest will be locked out of both schools briefly, and that'll put him even further behind. So all we're doing is cleaving. Our primary target is the hunter, but you know, we're gonna hit both of them. And I'm about to do a full CC chain on the priest, and as you can see, the priest is having trouble topping both of them off because we're purging the shields and we're cleaving a lot. So put a full trap, put my black arrow up while the priest is CC'd. I get rooted by Tracker's Net. Of course, make sure to disengage that. That's your only way out of Tracker's Net since it's a physical root, and it makes all of your abilities miss, basically, or like an 80% chance for your abilities to miss. So getting out of that Tracker's Net is super important if you want to keep up damage. And as you can see, they're kind of worried already. We get a half fear on the priest, and both of them are hovering at about half health. So this whole game, we pretty much have a lot of pressure. I kicked the priest Shadow Mend. Now hopefully my feral will have a kick up next as well. My priest is purging shields as often as he can. And of course I also put the Viper Sting on the priest out of the CC chains to again screw up his shielding a little bit. Now they get our priest in a full trap, a fear into trap, so our feral's in a little trouble, so he's probably going to pop his wall here. Well, wall as in his defensive cooldown, I think it's called Survival Instincts or something, to take reduced damage. I put a scatter trap on their priest as well. And then, out of that, my priest is going to run over and get a fear on their priest. First, the feral bashes him, and now I'm going to put up a Scorpion Sting, I think. Actually, no, I kicked the penance. Now my priest is going to put him in a full fear. And then out of that full fear, I'll Viper Sting. And all we're doing is just cleaving the whole time. So we got a full fear on the priest, that's great. Now I can put up my black arrow while the priest is CC'd. I actually overlapped my Scorpion Sting on the fear accidentally because I wasn't sure he was going to get it, so that's not good. But not a big deal because we're way ahead right now.
Scatter trap.
So I put a binding shot down, now I scatter the priest and trap off that while he's also hit with a binding shot stun. Both the targets are very low. The priest is having a hell of a time trying to keep them up. A half mind control on the priest after that fear from earlier. And as you can see, both the targets are just so low. So it's a very simple routine, very simple formula to win this matchup. You just do your perfect CC chains on the priest. Oh, that's another example right there of a really good double kick combo. My feral kicked the priest on his Shadow Mend, and then I kick him on Clarity of Will. And because he's playing the Strength of Soul spec, he doesn't have any big instant burst healing. And then there is a full trap on our healer, so it's still a little scary because our feral's low, so I scatter the hunter just to make sure he's safe. And boom, game is over. So the moral of the story here is perfect CC chains on priest, communicate between the hunter and the feral to make sure that you both are kicking. Every time your kicks are up, you can do kick on Shadow Mend, kick on Clarity of Will or something like that, and that'll put the priest very behind when he's playing that Strength of Soul spec. And of course, anytime your priest can purge shields, it's even better because the whole point of the Strength of Soul spec is it revolves around the shields being on the target and them taking 30% less physical damage. So if you can purge shields often and do really good perfect CC chains on the priest, it's so hard for him to keep up with the damage, especially when you're cleaving and your feral is dotting 2 targets at once. So they're pretty much, yeah, super pressured the entire game because of the cleaving. Alright, for this next game, this is a Jungle Cleave mirror match, although they have a Paladin and we have a Priest. Now, I think Priest, especially last season, has a distinct advantage in this matchup. The Priest just has way more consistent healing, plus he can play, again, that Strength of Soul spec, and the really good thing about that is they don't have a Purge on their team because they have a Paladin, so they have no way to dispel the shields, which means every time our Priest shields somebody, 30% less physical damage from an almost entirely physical damage comp. So we do have a pretty big advantage in this matchup. And I'm playing the single target build where, you know, trick shot, true aim, so I'm using arcane shot because there's no reason to cleave here at all. I'd rather just train the hunter and do max single target damage because, yeah, we don't need to deal with Strength of Soul here with the Paladin, so single target is the way to go. So I start off, of course, with a scatter trap on the Paladin. I got scattered during my scatter, so I immediately trinketed that to make sure I landed the trap. It's definitely worth using a trinket that early in the game because not only did it mean that I got my CC chain off at a crucial time, which also allowed my priest to fear off of that, but I also had True Shot up, and I don't want to sit CC if I can avoid it, you know, during True Shot. So with True Shot up and my CC chain being disrupted, trinketing there is definitely the way to go to keep the heavy pressure on the offense. So he does have Roar of Sack up, unfortunately, and I did get full bashed, so I lost 5 seconds of my True Shot. So now the Paladin is popping melee wings, which means he's going to have a ton of healing output. Now, I took Scorpion Sting in this matchup instead of Viper Sting. Against the Priest, I took Viper Sting, but there's no real reason to take Viper Sting here because they have 2 poison cleanses first off, and the other main reason is normally the Scorpion Sting is actually good against the Paladin because when they pop melee wings, you can reduce all their instant healing when they're meleeing somebody by 30% with Viper Sting plus your Mortal Strike on the target from your pet. But a good Holy Paladin like Rubcub, he's going to dispel that instantly if he sees it on himself, so it would just cost him 1 global to get rid of it, although if you're lower rated for sure and you're not fighting really good teams, most Paladins won't even notice it on themselves during melee wings, so it is recommended against Paladins, especially at, you know, lower rating. Even up to like 2400-2500, a lot of Paladins don't notice it on them instantly, and you'll just severely reduce their melee wing heals. But even if you can do that, the thing is melee wings is so strong even when you're reducing it drastically, so usually you're not going to get a kill during melee wings. There are some scenarios where if you do Scorpion Sting, Viper Sting on the Paladin while he's doing it, the target is already so low you might get a kill from it, but it's very rare. Usually it's hard to kill through it anyway, so you're going to win with CC chaining the Paladin and killing the target during the CC chain. So right now he has melee wings up. We already did our full CC chain, so we have no CC left for the Paladin right now, and they're CCing my Priest. They just put him in a full trap, which means we're on the defensive now, so all we have to do is survive until our next CC chain is ready to go back on the offensive. So I just throw down a tar trap, I scatter the Feral, because I'm not going to need that scatter for the Paladin, and I'm just trying to disrupt their CC chain and burst combination on my teammate right now. I get bursting shotted, unfortunately. They put a Hodge on my Priest, so my Feral is using defensive cooldowns to survive here. But once the Priest comes out of the CC chain with Strength of Soul and these big shields, we're not really worried at all anymore. So my Priest got a full fear on the Paladin, now I just need to get a scatter trap and keep going ham. His melee wings are down, so it's very hard for him to catch up without major cooldowns here. I'm going to use my Human Racial Trinket that to keep the offensive. Bursting shot on the Paladin DR, and unfortunately, poor Jellybeans died to bleeds through his deterrence. He did it a little too late, and he died during the deterrence. But even if he survived there, the game definitely would have lasted longer if he deterred earlier and survived, and then the Paladin would still have bubble. But this matchup is significantly in our favor due to having Priest with Strength of Soul and they don't have a Purge. So pretty much you just do that routine over and over until you win, you know? Just try to survive their CC chains and then pump them during your CC chains. And once the CC chain is over, it's really hard for the Paladin to recover without melee wings. Another thing that's really important too, that I forgot to point out earlier, is during the beginning of the game when the Paladin popped melee wings the first time, one really important thing during melee wings is to try to kite the Paladin. See how my whole team is far away from the Paladin who's over here? So I'm going to focus concussive shot the Paladin to keep him further away. I should have done it sooner, but it didn't really matter because we were on the defensive here anyway. But if you can ever kite the melee wings, just don't let the Paladin hit anybody on your team. Concussive shot him, and if he doesn't have a freedom, then he's kind of fucked. So always try to keep those focused concussive shots on Holy Paladins when they're trying to run at you and melee you to heal, because when they got the melee wings up, all their healing is going to be, you know, or the vast majority of their healing is going to be from meleeing people. So kite them, CC them, whatever you can do during melee wings, and it's going to be very hard for them to recover in that case. Anyway guys, that's it for this commentary video. If you like this style of video for educational purposes, or if you just find it interesting or whatever, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more, and I can definitely do more of those. I still have a crap ton of footage from the end of last season at really high ratings, so I could definitely afford to do more of these if you guys want. So, thanks for watching. As always, don't forget to subscribe and also check out my Twitch stream in the description, twitch.tv/TosanTribe, if you'd like to catch me live. Thanks for watching as always, guys, and peace out.